Basic, aka the Rap Nerd, and on Rap Nerd Radio, we have a special guest today. We have Associate Professor of Hip Hop, Dr. A.D. Carson. He's written for Rolling Stone, written for Spin Magazine, NPR, Washington Post, LA Times, big time publications now. He has his PhD, teaches a class at UVA. Is it called the Rap Lab?
So I run the rap lab, but I teach classes called writing rap, composing mixtapes, the Black Voice, which is just about like listening practices, but it's all hip hop related, of course.
All hip hop related, man. We got Dr. AD Carson here. How you doing, man? I just want to ask you first and foremost, how are you?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I can't complain. How about you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. Glad to have you on, man. I really want to pick your brain a little bit here and see if you can give our listeners some advice and let them know what you're all about too.
Word.
Okay, so I seen that you part of your rap lab is you teach how to write raps.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
break that down? Like what aspects of that do you teach?
Yeah, everything that you can imagine. So, I mean, I think that so when you go to college, and not just college, high school, probably middle school, folks will teach you the mechanics of composition. And what they mean by composition is really narrow. That is like how to write, if not academic prose, it's persuasive prose. How do I write a 5 paragraph essay? And I think that there's a whole lot of hand wringing currently going on, not just, like in the like sort of the national discourse, but even on a very local level where people say that young folks don't read as much or are not as literate or are not reading full books or full text, whatever. My contention is that what educational institutions need to be doing is finding out what folks actually do write and what folks actually do read so that the education can be as useful to the people as possible because I mean for any number of reasons, but the main thrust of having a class called writing rap is the same kind of thing that say like your advanced composition course would do with writing a 5 paragraph essay or a research paper. And mainly it's so that you can listen, interpret, and compose this kind of form that a whole lot of people are engaging with anyway. And we know that lots of people, I'm not just talking about what Billboard says people buy, because like we also understand when they talk about like the most consumed music genre, they're really talking about the most purchased. That's a capitalism argument. That's not a cultural argument, or it's not purely cultural.
For sure.
So the sheer number of people who have tried to write a rap because of the ubiquity of rap in our culture means that people would love to learn how to write the thing, but they would also love to learn how to interpret it. So what is the interpretive power that we gain as, productive citizens being able to understand what a rap from 1979 means or a rap from 2024 means, and the fact that folks borrow so much from hip hop probably would give us a whole lot of tools that would just make us better critical thinkers. So that's the whole idea behind the class. But the techniques, like, so we're talking like at the level of the line, at the level of the word, at the level of the couplet.
Yeah.
We go through histories, like what people were writing like in the 70s, what were people writing like in the 80s, what were folks writing like in the 90s, but then also very specific strategies. Like, how can I make a listener hear a word that I never said? How can I exploit the fact that this word might mean 4 different things depending on the context, and how might I sneak that into the rhyme by setting up that punchline or setting up that pun and then following it so that the ambiguity is highlighted.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like,
Yeah.
do you teach structure? Like, do you teach specific structures? But you just kind of answered it with you'll teach how to set up punchlines and whatnot. But do you teach anything as far as the typical 16 bar verse, 8 bar hook?
Yep.
Do you teach that they should do that, or what's your idea on the structure of a song, how it should be?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not trying to create like a rap Bible or anything. My version of it is that like we need to understand conventions and grammars. So again, these are specific to rap, but it's not only rap. Conventions and grammars are things that you need to know when you're writing anything. So, what's the expectation? So, when I'm talking to students about writing 16 bar verses or 8 bar hooks, I'm saying that these are conventions, but sometimes the persuasive power or the aesthetic power comes from defying that convention. So, a person who's going to write 100 bars is doing something in defiance of the convention that is not, it's also not law. Like that's something that came at a specific time. So, like folks were rapping before commercial rap recordings were a thing that you could buy. And commercial rap recording, like all technologies, changed the way that people wrote songs because of the ways that those things were disseminated. So what I mean is needing to be on the radio meant that you had to write your song so that it could be on the radio. Needing to be on a TikTok video or an Instagram reel or MySpace means that you have to write to the technological dissemination method. So it's a class that's about technology, it's about history, and it's also about like like these compositional expectations, but also understanding that each of those expectations as they've come into existence have been defied successfully by rappers, because I think that rap is also a place where the defiance of convention is one of the things that people love about not just rap music but hip hop culture. It's that it can see a convention and then find a way to like sort of move up against that and defy it in order to create something else. It's always, so it's not a set of things. That's what I mean by not trying to create a Bible. It's not saying that you must do one, two, three, four, five in order for it to be successful. It's saying that these are the things that people have done historically that have worked and have become expected. But we can look at the number of things that people have done that weren't that.
Mhm.
And if we did that, then we would probably like be able to situate ourselves more accurately,
Mhm.
but also make better arguments.
Yeah, and get people to pay attention because one thing that gets me to pay attention is like compound syllables, like
Yep.
maybe rhyming the third and the fourth bar with each other, or the third and the fifth bar with each other instead of like, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Just the typical. So I see what you mean by using little techniques to draw people in. And as far as the arguments, I caught in one of your posts, you said that you teach people how to lyrically design arguments.
Yep.
And could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. No. See, and I think that I'm a person who believes that every rap is making an argument, and it doesn't even matter if the person is using words that folks understand. So sometimes it's just the appeal to say like, I want you to listen to me. But other times it is like, I want you to do a very specific thing. Like, I want you to put your hands up. I want you to wave, like wave them like you just don't care or whatever. And so the way that you do that is not just at the level of like say the logos, like just like what a word means, but it's also what is attractive to the ear. And so we know that like say if you do a near rhyme, or there is like you're rhyming at the end of like you're rhyming at the end of bar one, bar two, bar three, and then you change the rhyme scheme like for bar four, the listener has heard you do something similar 3 times. Like your ear is now attuned to that so that you're like, I know what you're going to do. So when I change that last word of that fourth bar, I'm actually engaging what in what we would call something like the either the um it would be the denial or um concession to the listener's like pleasure. And I don't mean pleasure as in like sort of feeling good. What I mean is just saying like I am going to defy the expectation, or I am going to engage in the expectation. And because when we listen, like a lot of times we're doing it passively, but if we're doing it actively, then when that happens, we're like, yo, what
Yeah.
what's happening? And so then you might want to know why. And sometimes the why is just because I wanted you to respond that way.
Yeah. Who do
Yeah.
you think are some of those, like, as far as mainstream hip hop, who do you think are some of those scholarly like lyricists that do a lot of these techniques that you're preaching? Like, who do you think are some of the most technical rappers out there?
Uh, yeah, that's a good question. I think that the ones that I think the ones that folks will be able to like name very easily would be like Black Thought. I imagine folks would say the same for Lauryn Hill, Nas in certain respects, Royce the 5'9",
Oh yeah.
uh, Fonte. I like Love the Genius. She's not like as famous, but she's from Buffalo. Tierra Whack is really talented, like with regard to like technical proficiency.
Yeah.
But I would also say that rappers who do like melodic rap, somebody like Chief Keef is somebody who we should also consider in Young Thug in the appeal, like the sonic appeal that's being made.
Yeah.
Um, and so we should also like listen intently to what's going on with artists like Glorilla and Ice Spice. And the reason is because they are making these appeals that lots of people engage with. And so when folks get on their high horse and say that they don't like these particular kinds of music, what they're ignoring is that there is some kind of appeal that's happening between the speakers and the person who is listening to it saying, that's catchy, I like that. And maybe they're not even saying it's catchy, I like that. They're just repeating the phrase or repeating the phraseology. And if that's going on, then that's a successful appeal.
Absolutely. And I think that Glorilla does an amazing job at that because she got dudes that really, really love her music. And subconsciously, they may not know that a lot of the techniques that she's using is what's pulling them in. You know what I'm saying? And I think it might help that her tone is a little bit deeper too, subconsciously for the men.
Yeah. I mean, like all of these sort of affective things really help if you know how to use them to to draw people in. So when even like with Kendrick's new project that dropped, and folks are talking about his voice or the way that he's using his voice, I understand that as Kendrick understanding the ways that he might be able to appeal aside from literally what he's saying. And so he's able to use his voice in a lot of ways. Other rappers who've done this again, just with like tone and or um ad libs would be like Busta Rhymes or Migos, and you hear it, and again, this is not, I mean, I'm not teaching classes about my aesthetic taste. I'm not teaching you to like what I like. I'm also not teaching you like what I think is good music, and because I think it's good music you should think it's good music. I am simply receptive to the appeals that are being made by artists whenever they decide to record something, and then evaluating what's going on for students and myself to be able to peel apart what's going on. And if we're able to do that with music, if we're able to do that with with a quadruple entendre, I think that might make us better at understanding what's happening when we're looking at the news and we hear political doublespeak. And so so the argument is like really everybody should learn how to write rap. Everybody should learn how to more effectively listen to rap. And engage just like more deeply in Black rhetorical traditions that have allowed folks to live, thrive, resist, and survive in this country for a really long time.
Right. Okay. And that's a great answer. I also wanted to ask you, I noticed that you challenged what an expert even is in hip hop. And could you talk about that a little bit and how do you really feel like the credentials matter? And this is a personal question for me as well because I'm a hip hop journalist. I'm currently in college
Yeah.
and I've been feeling like let me go ahead and, get my credentials so nobody will be able to say anything about me. But like I'm starting to realize, that doesn't necessarily define everyone. And just could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll say it this way. Like, I got a PhD to say that a PhD don't mean shit.
Mm,
However, like when you don't have it and you say it, then it registers differently because then people are looking at your credibility whenever you say it. And so sometimes you got to do the thing to defy the thing. And we are, I mean, I think the capitalism has us in such a chokehold that a person with the credential and a person without the credential are going to be regarded differently. And that's not because the person with the credential has more knowledge, has more expertise, or any of those things. It's just because the credential is shorthand for the communication of something that we believe is kind of like universal. So that like expertise in welding or expertise in medicine, in I don't know, like doing x-rays or any kind of medicine, like that kind of expertise is the same kind of expertise in listening or the expertise in composing or expertise in like writing history or interpreting history. And I think that those things are different and many of them are culturally contingent. And so as people are making experts, like quote unquote making experts at universities, I'm always wondering, like, well, who validated that? When I submitted my dissertation and it was a rap album, I think that one of the questions was, how is this university going to be able to listen to this and tell me that I did what I needed to do? Now, it won't be because they thought I was a good rapper. And even if they told me they thought I was a good rapper, that don't mean nothing to me because like they aren't the people who I'm trying to appeal to when I rap. So my work has to appeal to the audiences whose opinions I respect about whether I'm a good rapper or not. And so my dissertation committee advisor telling me that he thinks it's good music, I mean, that's cool, I guess, but we need to talk about whether I actually did the research, whether I'm actually presenting my findings in a way that folks will be able to understand, and if, the argument that I'm making holds water, regardless of whether I'm doing it through rap or not. And so when I'm talking about what expertise looks like, I'm saying that like I didn't go to a university to learn how to rap. That would be silly to go to a university to learn how to rap if you want to be a rapper. Not and this is coming from the same person that says that everybody should learn, but universities don't have the infrastructure to teach you the thing that your favorite rappers are doing. It just doesn't. So I'm not going to be the person that'll be quick to say like we need to make a certificate program for people to write raps without having the infrastructure for that education to be diverse and for it to be something that people are going to get value from on the other side of it. But I also understand why people make those things and why someone in a particular position, like especially needing to get a job, needing to have credentials to be able to like pitch and get assignments for the stuff that you want to write, say, I got a certificate from this university in writing rap or in interpreting rap, and I worked with XYZ professor who did blah blah blah, because that kind of referencing is the logic that we are operating by. And that if we're already in that circumstance and it's already working for all of these other things, it works for poetry, it works for medicine, it works for engineering, then why can't it work for hip hop? But I'm just saying that we should always understand that caveat whenever we're thinking about what it means. So I don't have no qualms about a person needing to know what my credentials are before they start talking to me. The reason that I don't have no qualms about that is because like when we get to the like when the rubber hits the road, I know that I know what I need to know, and I know that my performance is going to be what it needs to be. And like if I'm not showing improving, then I'm not doing my job. And if
Right.
I also like try to use that PhD as a shield from critique or from criticism, then well, we know that that's bullshit. That's not something that I'm gonna do, even though when I see people do it, I understand why they're doing it, and I also understand how effective it can be.
Okay, that's real. And also I want to ask, speaking of education and expertise and all of that, how important is education for creatives in general? Like, you do teach the rap lab class and everything like that. And I guess some people might argue that that's a structured form of education for creatives. Some people think that creativity should just be you sitting in front of your DAW and just figuring shit out. So How important do you think education is for creatives?
I think curiosity is the thing that's important. And so um that might be me sort of stepping to the side of the question because like I think that like education or being in the classroom or I don't know reading the right number of books, a lot of times that feels like folks are going through the process of just checking the box. So one of the things that I've said even this semester to my students is that even though like everybody's doing the assignment that I've given you, I prefer a class that's genuinely curious. So just doing the work, just checking the boxes is not sufficient. Like I think that you have to, I think that it's ultimately important that you are curious and you want to know shit, that you want to learn things. Like when I ask you about a particular song, if I ask you about a song that came out in 1963, if I ask you about the like the breakbeat Impeach the President, and you don't know it, rather than like presenting some kind of alibi, like, oh, that came out before I was born, or I didn't know, or whatever, just be like, okay, I need to find out what this is, and then like go out and find that. And the people who are curious then are going to, I think, curiosity feeds creativity. And education for a lot of people is just like the attainment of a degree or the attainment of knowledge. So when I read a book, I'm not trying to like I'm not trying to read the book to say that I've consumed it. I'm trying to read the book so that I could be familiar enough with it that whenever I do make reference to it or whenever I do talk to people with it, that it feels like something, if I want it to be familiar, it feels familiar. And so if somebody asks me, um, can you write a song in the style of, whoever, whatever rapper, like in whatever year? I'm like, man, you know what? I think I can. I want to try to do that. That's not for commercial purposes. That's not to create the commodity that's going to sell. That is simply for me to be able to know that I can use the tools that I have to create that kind of thing. And that kind of thing, then whenever I'm like trying to create the project that I want to make, I've got all of these tools that I didn't have access to before. And so it's really just a matter like the way that like that you become technical, whatever you mean by technical, is by engaging in the practice of technique, like engaging in the learning. And, like this learning happens through immersion. It happens through listening widely, reading widely, engaging a lot of media, listening to a whole lot of folks. That doesn't mean that you have to believe them or that you even have to like them to listen, but you engage. And so it's a deep engagement with the world, the worlds that surround you.
Right. I believe some of the best artists are the ones that challenge themselves. And speaking of which, I wanted to ask you about the PhD track because you definitely went Papoose style almost on that. And
Right.
everything in it, for the listeners, everything in PhD was the it started with the letter P, then the next word started with H, then the next letter started with D. And it continuously did that all the way to the end of the song. I feel like that had to be challenging. Can you talk about that song a little bit? What inspired you to do that? And how long did it take you to write it for? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, so I really I was thinking about that. So many rappers, you have folks like Papoose who did the Alphabetical Slaughter, Jay-Z did 22 twos and also 44 fours, Common did Communism. And I can think of a whole lot of other rappers who've done this kind of thing, but I also thought that it's important being a person who's going to write who wrote an album to get a PhD is a very specific context. And so like, what's the brag that a rapper can engage um in that way, but it's also not a brag so much as it's like the demonstration of a skill set. So I know that a lot of rappers could do it, but why would you do it? Like why would you make a song, called PhD without a PhD? And so it's like sort of subtly getting at that. It it took it took a whole lot of, I think that it wasn't time that it took. I think that it just took focus because there was also, like all of I mean, if you can imagine the hoopla, as a journalist, that people use hip hop in all kinds of like weird ways to, like when a rapper goes to Harvard. I know there was just a rapper that somebody was saying got a
Um,
degree from Harvard.
Little baby.
Yeah, and I think that that's dope. I think that it's dope that he went there. But when I'm reading about it, like it feels so much like people are kind of like exoticizing the fact that this man from this place got a degree from this kind of institution. And they believe that that means something like positive about hip hop, or that like it's and all of those things I think are positive for those people. But I think that it also engages in sort of a deep disdain for Black folks and for Black cultural production for rap. And what I mean is that whenever they like are celebrating these things, and I'm saying that this happens with my work as well, when they're celebrating these things, they make it seem as if like rappers ain't been intelligent, ain't been scholarly, ain't been doing things that academics couldn't even fathom doing
Right.
forever without the institutional acceptance. So like when you get a fellowship named after Nas, I mean like that's cool for y'all, but that says something about that. That's something that y'all gain, not a thing that hip hop gained. Y'all are learning from hip hop. Hip hop is not getting a thing from you for that, except that these headlines make that, like make that seem like the case. And so in the way that people continue to engage in these kinds of things, folks will talk forever about the fact that a dude wrote an album to get a degree, but then never talk about the skill of the dude who did it. Like, can he rap? Like, what are the songs about? Like, what are the skills? And because they're so focused on the rapper, I mean with the W, they're so focused on the container, they're not even looking to see what's inside. And I feel like that, like it's insulting for real. So when I wrote the song, it's also to say that, like, yeah, I can understand what y'all think about whatever it is that I'm doing. But at the end of the day, like I said, when I step on a stage, whether I got a PhD or not, like we are not going to have any problems about what I'm able to do whenever the mic turns on.
Right.
And that's what that's about. I think it's just to say that I wish folks would dig a little bit deeper. You know what I mean? And the only way that you get that is to do it. Like I mean, this is why I love to like talk with journalists like yourself, because then you get the opportunity to like make the case for what you do and like what you actually do, and not the veneer of progress or the veneer of, like hip hop's exceptionality. It's not about like something exceptional. Like it's hella people that rap and are dope. I find myself like amongst them. But I don't know if those folks are here. Like I don't know if they're here teaching at the university. Many of them are students at the university. So that, I mean, that's really what it is to just challenge the notion that that what the headlines tell us, or that what you like, that those are the things that really matter. What matters is what happens here.
Yeah, well said, man. And speaking of like challenges and everything, I want to know that, some people don't like a challenge. And I want to know what you feel about the AI that's out there nowadays. People are using AI to make beats, they're
Right.
using it to construct their lyrics and all kind of stuff. What's your take on that? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, like I think that the fear that people have about AI, or it seems like weirdly that the fears that people have about AI is really like about whether rich people or famous people are going to be exploited by it, much more than people are worried about the
Integrity?
well, no, it's not even integrity or quality. I think that like it's the like our if we worried about the way that regular people, like regular working class, not famous folks, are going to be exploited by this kind of technology, because we have a whole history of that to draw from, then I would like maybe engage in the conversation. But the conversation right now is about like, I don't know, like Drake using Tupac, or like if somebody is able to use Donald Trump's voice ethically, or whatever it
Yeah.
might
Or
be.
like if a label can use an artist's voice and their likeness after they pass away and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, and that is, I mean, I think that we should really, and also we're already in that place. I think the reason that there are not as many restrictions will probably follow the same trajectory as the conversation about copyright. So as long as rich folks can exploit and make money from leaving the laws lax and or ambiguous about AI and intellectual property, then I don't think that those I don't think anything is going to change. And because of that, then that means that we need to watch out for like the very ordinary way that AI is going to be used by regular people. And then that ordinary use is going to turn into something that these people who have a whole lot of money and are deeply invested in exploiting people will take that and then make it into a major product. And then that's going to be the future of AI. And that future is not going to benefit the people who pioneered it. It's really going to be a way to box them out of whatever they could have gained from it if there were laws that were in place. And again, we see that happen with copyright. We've seen that happen with the invention or the changing of what a mixtape means. We've seen that happen with like the commercial record, in 1979, the commercial rap record. We've seen that happen with auto tune. We've seen it happen the with turntables, like the SP, like the techniques, or with particular drum machines. We've seen it happen. So like I'm just waiting for the place where history rhymes with itself with regard to AI. And I think that that's coming.
Okay. Like you said before, you said history rhymes, not repeats, right?
Yep. Yes, yes.
Yeah, man. And we're gonna wrap up the interview though. We're running out of time. But before we do, did you want to maybe talk about your office hours or anything else about the Rap Lab before we get up out of here?
Yeah, so office hours, like I was talking to a graduate student about something that was on, I think on TikTok, and he said something to me and I responded back, and then he's like, you should put that on TikTok, because there's just so many arguments over there that people are making, and I thought like, yeah, that might be cool. So folks can post questions, whatever question you have, like I'll respond to that directly and then post it online. So that's something that I think is maybe beneficial, because I know that people wonder, where do we get credible information about hip hop? I'm not going to lie about something that I don't know about, like I'm going to give my perspective, but like there's a difference between an opinion and analysis and research. And so I want to also model that. And if anybody is ever in Charlottesville, we actually do have open office hours twice a week where folks can come through into the lab and listen to music or just listen to the conversation. And then also for folks who are in academia, people who are studying, like we have classes where you can like really deeply engage with hip hop and think and take seriously the kinds of questions that we're engaging with right here. And on the other side of that, of course, then you might, like you can get a degree for it. But yeah, I just want people to, I want there to be smarter arguments. I want there to be deeper engagement. I want there to be more serious conversation. And I don't mean serious without laughs. I mean serious as in like, like really like not whims and notions, but like some considered thought about the things that we talk about when we say hip hop. Like, what does it really mean? What does it really do? What are we really doing? What are we engaging with? And how are people using the products that we make in order to earn and do all of the things that they do with the products that we make? So that's the short spiel.
Absolutely. And there it is. I want to put all the links down below for everybody who's watching on YouTube to where you can contact Dr. A.D. Carson. And I want to thank you for coming on the program today.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me.
All righty, man. And as I always say, if you don't have a vision, you better off blind. And if you don't live with a purpose, you better off dying. It's your boy D-Sick, aka the rap nerd, Dr. A.D. Carson, and we are out of here. Peace, peace.
You're now listening to Rap Nerd Radio, the world's best indie hip hop.